In this video, I'm going to take you on a wild ride, telling you the story of an Hermes heir who planned to leave his estate worth billions of dollars to his gardener. Can you imagine? And ultimately, why that's probably not going to happen. It's a very interesting story, and I have lots of questions about it and questions for you. I'm very curious to hear what you think about this. I would love for this to be a conversation in the comment section, so stay tuned. And welcome, I'm Autumn Beckman, and I'm here to help you live your most luxurious life within your budget. I post new videos on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those, and so you don't miss my daily community posts where I share the best sales of the day and fabulous handbags that I find. Also, don't miss my website, autumnbeckman.com/shop. That is where you'll find handbags and accessories that I have for sale, as well as the My Handbag Collection Organizer, which are planner pages that I've designed to help you organize your handbags and your life. The heart of the planner is the item tracker page, where you can track all the information about your handbags and your small goods. There are also wish list pages, shipment trackers, several different calendar pages so you can find what works best for you, project planning pages, and so much more. Hermes is France's second most valuable company, worth over $248 billion. One of the Hermes heirs, Nicolas Puech, a fifth-generation heir, in 2020 he was worth $3 billion. And by last year, 2024, Hermes had done so well that his worth had gone up. It had skyrocketed to $13.6 billion. He also made headlines last year by revealing he was planning to pass on a significant portion of his estate, about half of it, to his gardener. He even planned to legally adopt his gardener, who of course is an adult, in order to ensure that that would happen. And this is not a new story, so I'm curious how many of you have heard of this before. Let me know in the comments. But this year, there has been an update to this story, and it's rather shocking and rather heartbreaking, at least for the gardener, which is that almost his entire fortune has vanished. So far, there is no information on what actually happened to it, so I can't tell you that part of the story. There is a lot of speculation, but nothing factual. Can you imagine being that gardener, having this knowledge that you would be inheriting about $7 billion, and then all of a sudden it's taken away? I mean, on one hand, it's never really yours in the first place, but when you learn about it, you've got to start dreaming about things and what you're planning to do with that money and how different your life will be. And that must be so exciting, and then to just have it ripped from you, I imagine would be pretty devastating. And it got me thinking, let's take out the sad part of the story and go back to a regular person getting this kind of insane inheritance. And it got me thinking, what if that happened to me? What if I suddenly have some kind of windfall like that? What would I do with the money? And I'm very curious what you would do if it happened to you. So I have some questions for you. I think the most common thing that people think of when they first think about a big inheritance or winning the lottery is, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to buy a new house, a new car, I'm going to move to some dream location. But we have had enough lottery winners at this point to know what happens to people when they get this kind of money all of a sudden. They often end up with financial struggles because they've overspent. Most of us regular people don't grow up with the kind of knowledge that it takes to manage that amount of money. So when we have that money, we go crazy with it. We think, it's this huge sum, it'll last forever, and we just spend. But what we found with lottery winners is a large percentage of them end up spending all that money within a few years, and some even end up filing bankruptcy. There are also impacts on your personal life, not just your financial life. When people know that you have come into that kind of money, there are all kinds of people that come out of the woodwork asking for some. And that's understandable, especially if you're going through some kind of hardship and you could use help and you feel like, well, this was just dropped into their lap. Particularly in a situation like that, they didn't earn it. They just all of a sudden have all this money that they didn't have before. So what's the big deal if they give me some of it? But that can strain relationships between the person who suddenly has this money and the other people around them, especially if they say no to people. A lot of people aren't understanding of that. And it can lead to some mental health issues. There are lottery winners that have reported negative emotions like isolation and stress and depression and loneliness. So what can we learn from these lottery winners? Well, we can learn that sure, you can go spend on a few things, but don't go too crazy. Take a step back, take a little time, and plan what you would do with that kind of money. Make thoughtful decisions. So let's do that today. Let's plan our futures as ultra wealthy people. And I have found, I even made a video on this. If I can find it, I will link it below. I have found in the last few years in particular that it seems like there's more and more, I don't know if hatred is too strong a word, I don't think it is for some people, but there's more and more negativity directed at people who are very wealthy, and particularly at billionaires. They're often demonized because people feel like there are so many problems you could solve with that kind of money. We don't see a lot of these very wealthy people doing that. So if you had that kind of money, what would you do with it? What world problems would you solve? Well, I think most people, whether you're coming into that kind of wealth suddenly or it grows over time, I think most people are going to start with themselves and then gradually work their way out from self to inner circle, outer circle, community, and then broader society. So for example, spending on self, those are the things I just mentioned. New house, new car, moving to a dream location. Or in our case, handbags. What handbags would you buy if you could buy anything? And would you still work? People say they would quit their jobs, but would you stop working completely, or would you switch to something that you have always wanted to do? Would you start your own company or your own nonprofit? Would you work for yourself? Would you do charitable work? And there you have to think about, if you could do anything with your life, what would it be? So many of us don't have that kind of choice because it's such a luxury. People who need a job because they need to earn money are much more limited than people who want to work because they don't need money, they just want to do this kind of work. What are your personal interests? What are your passion projects? And then I think people move from self to their tight inner circle, like parents and siblings, your immediate family. So maybe you get material things for them too, new houses and cars. Would you support your parents so they could retire? What about your siblings? What about if you have children, what would you do to set up their futures financially? And then you might move to the outer circle, friends and more distant family. Would you buy them gifts? Would you do things like pay off medical debt? And then you might move out to the community. For example, charitable contributions to your favorite local organizations, or maybe investing in small businesses. And then you get to that final circle, which is spending on broader society. And this is where billionaires really have the capacity to change the world with their money in meaningful ways and in ways that most people can't, because it does take a lot of money. What broad societal problems would you want to tackle if you had the resources to tackle anything? And how do you think it would be best to go about doing that? Personally, one of the first things that I would want to work on is animal welfare causes. Coming from Houston, like I do, there's a huge overpopulation problem with dogs and cats. And because of that, there are already tons and tons of rescues that are set up in that area. I mean, there were 3 rescues just for dachshunds. And there are also volunteer pilots who have private planes, and they will take animals from overpopulated areas like Houston, and they'll fly them up to a place like the Portland, Oregon area where overpopulation is not a problem as far as I've been able to tell. And there are a ton of people who want to adopt and not necessarily enough animals to fill that need. So I think what I would do is look at those places where there are overpopulation issues and provide more resources, like building more shelters, because there aren't always enough foster homes. And I'm talking about no-kill shelters, because so many animals are put down every day just because of overcrowding at shelters. And I'd help build a national network of shelters and rescues, adoption facilities, hospital facilities. Maybe I could even figure out a way to make veterinary care more affordable for people so they could properly take care of their animals. There's so many people that want to care for their animals but just can't afford the health care. And of course, education, helping to educate people on what animals actually need and how they should be treated. That's probably my biggest passion project, but I think also if I had this kind of money, billions of dollars, well, we're seeing with the current administration in America that there are lots of billionaires currently involved, and they're doing what they can to push their own agendas. So why not push mine? So for me, at that level, where you have enough money to influence government, my focus would be education. And I was thinking about this and thinking, how can you actually do that? Like, what are the practical steps to go about influencing education in America and reforming it? And my first thought was public schools, but I'm not certain that that's a problem that can be changed in one lifetime. It's so huge, it involves so many different people and so many different influences. I think the answer would probably be instead, with these kinds of resources, to open a series of nationwide private schools that would be tuition free and are open to the public. And that way you can build new facilities that have all the resources that the students and the staff need. You'd have more control to be able to limit class sizes or to expand so that you can have smaller class sizes if you're able to hire enough teachers. Because class size is a huge, huge problem in education right now. I would want to be very involved in curriculum development. Not just me, a team of people, but I would want to be very involved in that. It would have to represent diversity, it would have to be fact-based, and critical thinking would have to be a very key component built into everything. I would also add curriculum that's not currently required across the grade school levels, but that is very, very important for the real world. Things like understanding human psychology and behavior, business, economics, politics, financial management, and other courses like that. Things that you often don't get exposed to until you get to the college level, and of course not everybody goes to college. And then beyond even this level of influencing government, there is another level, which is innovating for the future. And this is where I feel like a lot of billionaires get a bad rap. And I'm not trying to defend them, but I've never understood people complaining about billionaires going to space and doing space innovation, because people will say, you know, why are you working on that when there are so many problems to be solved at home on Earth? Well, because if they don't do it, who will? NASA has been hobbled, and it's very important to think about the future and think about how we can push humanity farther than most people even dream about. And if I had those kinds of resources, I'm not sure what kind of innovation and future technology I would want to focus on. I've never really thought about it because I've never been in the kind of position where that was an option, right? Most of us never are. But I'm so curious to hear if you guys have ideas for what you might want to work on for that level or any of the others. I'd love to hear your responses of what you would do from self to outer space if you suddenly had this windfall of billions of dollars. So please let me know in the comments section below. I can't wait to read those. And while you're down there, please check the description box for my website and any other things I might have linked. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Hope to see you back here next time, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.